everybody. Welcome back. My name is Diana Mercuri, and I have the great pleasure of being here with Odette Tolksdorf. Odette has been our South African coordinator for so many years, and she has helped bring South African quilts over to the US to be judged and displayed for our World Quilt Competition. She has also taught for us in the past, and she's just a great lady, and we're happy to have her here. Hi, Odette. Thanks so much for coming. How are you today?
Hi, Diana. Very lovely to see you, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yes. So where are you Zooming from today?
Where am I? I'm in South Africa, and I live in a suburb in Durban, which is on the east coast of South Africa, and the province is called KwaZulu-Natal. So, and it's Durban is kind of like Huntington Beach. When I went to Huntington Beach, I thought, oh, this is like Durban.
Well, that sounds very nice. Huntington Beach is a great area.
It's also known for surfers, and So
well, lovely. Well, thank you so much for being here. Why don't we start
pleasure.
A little bit by having you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, so I was born in South Africa, but I spent most of my childhood in Melbourne, in Australia, because my parents immigrated there. Because people always say, why did you go to Australia? I said, well, my parents didn't ask me; they just took me. So I just did most of my schooling in Australia, in Melbourne, and then we came back, and I finished my last 2 years of schooling in South Africa. And I've got a graphic design diploma. I've always just loved anything to do with art and design and drawing and art. So I'm married, and I've got 2 children, and I've lived in about 4 different provinces in South Africa. We've lived in this house that we're in now for like almost like 35 years, but so that's my background. I've been in the quilting world ever since I've been in Durban, which is like 30 something years. So the Durban is where I learned about quilting and met all my lovely quilting friends.
Well, so I see that you are a twin.
I am. I've got a twin, and her name is Odile. So now anyone who knows ballet knows that it's from Swan Lake. But that's my twin is the one who lives in California. But I am one of I've got one of 7 siblings. So it's I've got a twin, and I've got 6 other siblings.
Oh my gosh. That is a big family. And is everybody spread out across the world, or mostly?
A sister in Australia and a sister in California, and then everyone else is in South Africa. So yeah, it's lovely having a big family like that.
Does Odile does she quilt as well?
No, she doesn't.
No?
She doesn't. We're both very interested in anything to do with art and design and craft and architecture, but she doesn't, she paints, but she's a therapist as her, that's her profession for the last, several years. Yeah. So no, but she doesn't.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Now just say my sister is creative. She always has been creating, but not in the quilting area.
I know this is always the issue with Zoom. It's hard to be able to talk back and forth. I'm in Pennsylvania, you're in South Africa. It's
right.
Like we're so far away. It's a little bit of a delay. How did you get into the world of textile arts? You said you started in Durban, and that's when you started quilting?
Well, actually, when I was a young teenager, my mother did teach me to sew. And she was very creative, although, you can imagine she didn't have really much time to herself with 7 children. But so that was the start of my sewing. And then when I came to Durban, I just happened to go to a talk on, Durban has got a very strong, or it had a very strong British influence. So the quilting here was more influenced by the British quilting. Well, that was, as I say, 30 odd years ago. But the woman who gave the talk was very inspiring, and she was actually a fine artist herself and very creative also. So I actually went to her for classes. Nina Lawrence was her name. And in fact, I think I was very lucky to go to her because she wasn't kind of, it was kind of a very, I don't know, an artistic approach, I would say, to quilting. And it wasn't rigid, it was kind of, so anyway, I just enjoyed it so much. And then I just went, started going in slowly, but then after a few years, I went in very, kind of very strong. And it was just every single day I was spending the whole day making things. And then I started teaching after a few years, because, the one thing that I realized was that there needed to be teachers who were teaching about, let's say, design principles and design. And because I've got a graphic design background, I thought that would be, I realized that would be a good background. Apart from learning techniques, it's just so important to learn about design. So, that's how I started. And then I started teaching in my house and teaching, in public places like the library and the, church halls and so on. And then, I was very interested in exhibiting also. So, I decided to make a profession of it. So, as I say, I worked, probably like 10 hours a day, every day at it, and I loved it also.
Wow.
And I was lucky to have a big studio at home. So I started exhibiting, and my whole career, I've probably exhibited like minimum of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year, in different places. So that was a big part of it, teaching and exhibiting, making.
That's very exciting.
Yeah. So
are your classes more about design then? The classes that you currently teach?
I would say that my most popular classes are design orientated, and then also kind of like freestyle classes. You're just working with freestyle. So that's how I like to work. Also, start with something and then assess it as you go along, not have the whole design drawn out beforehand. So that's what I like to do. Also, teachers, believe in your sense of design, and once you know those kind of principles, you can work with them. So I would say that is my most popular classes.
Great. Well, they sound really exciting. And certainly we've had you teach for us in the past at our shows, but you've been the South African international competition coordinator for quite a while. How long has it been?
Yeah, actually, I wrote it down here because I knew I wouldn't remember. Let me see here.
It's been that long.
I know.
And
we've. I know. Last year would have been the 20th year, but because because of COVID, this year is the 20th year. That's how. So that's how long it was. 2001.
That's amazing.
I taught for you before that, and then 2001 was the first lot of quilts I sent over as a South African coordinator. I know it is a long time, isn't it? Yeah,
yes, that is a very long time. And we've always enjoyed, presenting the World Quilt Competition at our shows and having, all of the countries, displayed and come together. It's really an exciting, aspect of the Mancuso shows that not a lot of the other shows, I don't think any of the other shows really have.
Yeah, I agree. And I did look at the slideshow of the online slideshow. And it was just so interesting to see the different countries, the quilts from the different countries. It was very interesting. So that's a big plus for about COVID. You know? I mean, normally you wouldn't do that, hey?
No, I mean, that's exciting. So everybody that's watching out there today, we don't have a World Quilt competition this year due to COVID, but we did have several countries agree, including South Africa, to do special exhibitions. And these quilts they're actually on their way to our office right now, some of them being delivered, and we're going to show them at our upcoming in-person shows, the Pennsylvania National Quilt Extravaganza, the Pacific International Quilt Festival, and the Quilt and Sewing Fest of New Jersey. But if you can't make it to any of those shows and you are watching right now, if you go onto onlinequiltfestival.com right now, you can actually see all of the special exhibitions from all the different countries. And we're just so excited that we get to present them. Odette, so being the coordinator for so long, do you have any favorite entries for over the past years?
Gosh, I mean, you asked me to look at that, and it was so difficult. But, I did actually put together a list here. Well, I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to pick out some of them. Sally Scott did a wonderful piece called Towards Infinity. I don't know if you're going to be showing that. Sue Prince did a beautiful traditional quilt called the Celtic Wedding Ring. And, it was interesting because as I was picking these out, I just decided to have a look how many are traditional and how many are contemporary. And so I put the modern ones in with the contemporary. And, it was almost like half, so that
would you say that a lot of the entries over the years have been half and half traditional, half innovative, or would you say that a lot of the entries are more traditional?
Yeah, I've actually never counted it, but I would say that South Africa is like that. It is. I would say that our entries have been about half. Yes. Yeah.
That's great, because I think a lot of sometimes what we see is that in some areas the traditional quilting is not as popular anymore as like the art quilting and innovative quilting. Whereas I think in the US, traditional quilting is still, really prevalent and is popular.
Yes. No, it definitely is here also. And I mean, there's some stunning pieces. Marlene Turner, one of hers was called Makatini Salad Bowls. And she has exhibited at many World Quilt shows, probably about, I'm not sure, I'm guessing now, like 5 or 6 times. Jenny Hearn also, I've just got one of her pieces here called Autumn Bluster, but she's also probably entered 6 or 7 times as well. Catherine Harmer Fox, Once There Were, which was a wonderful piece about rhinos, and the killing of rhinos for their rhino horn, which is like one of the most ridiculous things I can think of.
I remember that quilt. It's such a beautiful quilt.
It is. It's a wonderful piece. Colleen Butler, called Contemporary African Baskets. Tilly de Harder, who's also entered quite a few years, there's a beautiful one called Shattered. And then
it seems like a lot of the entrants are, return entrants, that they continuously enter into the competition, which is wonderful, which means they're still continuing to create over these years.
That's so true. Lillian Myberg, who has won a couple of times the best of South African, I've chosen the one called Birds of Paradise. So and then Claire Wallace also does beautiful they're actually original traditional types of designs. So she designs them herself, but they are, traditional look. So, there's a lot. I've got others, but anyway, that was just some of them. And there's quite a few on that list who, as you say, are people who have put their work through several times.
We've always enjoyed, seeing these quilts when they come into our office and we unpack them. It's like opening, Christmas presents to see all of these beautiful quilts.
It is wonderful because, that's actually one of the things that I enjoy is to see work that, in South Africa, we don't have that many quilt shows because we don't have we've got several thousand quilters in this country, maybe 5,000 in the whole country, So we only have a national exhibition every 2 years. We might have a small exhibitions, but so we don't really get a lot of chances to see other quilts unless we, see the quilts in our area. So one of the things that I enjoy is being the coordinator is to see all these amazing quilts coming in.
That's
so
right.
I get the same thrill.
That's right. You get the same deal when all the quilts come to you. So what is unique about a South African quilt?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because I thought about this. I started writing things down, and I'll tell you now. And then I actually contacted Sue Cameron, who's one of our younger, very dynamic quilters, and she teaches a lot and she gets around a lot and so on. Anyway, so we came up with some very ideas which are very similar. First of all, color. I think if you live in a sunny country, then it seems that you tend to use more color. So that's one of the things that we and I've actually seen this with South African quilts and certain other maybe it's also hard. I found a very hard question because it's obviously going to be a statement of not all quilts are like this, but generally we both agree that color, there's a lot of South African quilters use a lot of color, or like to use color. And obviously, for every statement like that I make, I have to say, but there are, of course, people who don't use a lot of color, And of course, African also means very earthy colors as well. So it's not just bright colors, but we do love color. I think that's because of the sunshine. And all around us we see color. Like if I think of any in Durban, there's a lot of Zulu arts and crafts and beadwork and all kinds of things like that, and that's always very, very colorful. In Durban, we also have quite a large Indian, Southeast Asian Indian community. And again, these beautiful saris that you see and other gorgeous colors, So, and then Sue actually also made distinction between certain provinces. She said one province tends to be more traditional, and then the other province, is more art quilts. And, it's something I hadn't noticed, but, I would say that the biggest thing for me is the color. And then, of course, like any creative endeavor, or anyone who does creative things, they tend to get influenced by what's around them. So, like as I mentioned, you look at the culture around you, and that's what I say, the Zulu influence here. Somewhere else, you might have other kinds of influences, like in the Cape. The Cape is more, I suppose, kind of European in some ways, So. Yeah, but let's just say that I would say the use of color is probably a big defining feature.
So you just mentioned that the being in a sunny place and the earthy colors, like are definitely affect the quilting. For yourself, what inspires you when you're creating your art?
Okay, so it's the same thing. I get inspired by, and it could be anything around me. I've made quilts inspired by newspaper articles, by looking at a fence that was made out of twigs and trees. I think when you're a creative person, you don't even try. You just kind of automatically, wherever you look, you see pattern and color and lines, and you kind of either put it in your head or you draw it down somewhere. So, honestly, it really could be anything. It could be somebody you see in the street and you take a photograph. I mean, I do work for my own photographs as well. So, and then, I mean, it also could be the fabric. I've made pieces where this one fabric just started me thinking, I want to do like this, or this, cut it like this, do like that. So, honestly, it really could be anything. And then sometimes what happens is that, I had this one series called On the Edge, and I had seen a carved wooden, it was actually a wooden Zulu piece. And the design was all around the edge of this the carving. And I looked at it, it was so beautiful. But there was nothing in the middle. It was just a shape like this. There's nothing in the middle. I thought, that's so interesting, because in the Western, when we design in the Western kind of way, all the important stuff's in the middle,
Right.
But this thing was so beautiful, just having the design around the edge. So I made a whole series of 4 pieces
wow.
with a design just around the edge, and just so something like that, where you look at something and you actually analyze it and you think, wow, that what is it that makes it so appealing, in some way, which is fascinating to see why it's so successful for me, obviously. So, and then there was another one where I saw a chair where the back of the chair was also a very oddly carved kind of thing. And I made a whole series again. I think it was 3 or 4 pieces on that, So
that sounds like you're a very visual person.
Yes.
And what you see art in so many different things. That's really interesting.
I think it's also the kind of thing where, I don't even go looking for it, just like comes to me, and so sometimes I'll just go through my sketchbook and I'll have a look and I'll see it. I think, oh yeah, I've been wanting to do that for years, and then I'll just start on that, so
very cool.
Ideas just are there, and in fact, I think everyone's got lots of ideas, and the thing is to actually start on one of the ideas, because if you've got 25 ideas, you have to choose one.
Right.
In fact, often what happens is several ideas come together as well. It's not just one idea. You maybe have one main idea that I have, and then other things come into it as well. So I think that's also how it works with me, anyway. With me.
Well, that's great. I mean, I like that process. It sounds like a very organic, very,
yes.
fun process of creating the art.
Right. Just letting things kind of come in, and it's also very interesting when you're creating like that, because on the one hand you have to be very kind of analytical, but on the other hand you have to be in that creative. You're in that creative mood, and you kind of not analyzing, but then at some stage you do have to be analytical, So it's just an interesting process, and I mean, it just I don't always analyze. I just do it.
Well, what other than quilting, do you have any other passions?
Well, my whole life is involved with art and design and things people make and things people do. I'm just very fascinated by the creative process and the creative pursuits of other people as well. So I also have a company which is I started in 2000. I do arts and crafts tours for people around South Africa. And I've also been in the field of buying and selling arts and crafts for about 10 years. I was doing that as well. I got to meet a whole lot of, and I love being with creative people, and I just enjoy, so my whole life kind of has revolved around that. I love reading, and I tend to like, non-fiction. I love biographies or autobiographies, but I love a good fiction. I love a good read as well. So
Good.
I'm cooking. I love coffee. Big coffee drinker.
That is, well, that's great. I'm sure that that keeps you alert and awake for doing your other crafts. It
Yeah,
opens your mind.
yeah,
Odette,
that's right.
thank you so much for coming on
Pleasure.
with us today. It was a great pleasure to speak with you. We're so excited to have the South African quilts hanging in our
Lovely.
shows coming up the fall. We wish you well and thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Okay, thank you. Bye then.